Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's job is to replace the automatic transmission fluid and filter of my 2000 model E46 318i. The automatic transmission is a GM 84S 200R. Now what I've got here is all the tools that I need to do the job. I'll start off with the filter kit. So I bought this filter kit to suit. Obviously the filter, the gasket and the replacement bolts. For the fluid I went with a Liqui-Moly ATF 1200, which was a spec for this transmission, and you can get all the specs from there, from the bottom there, but from doing lots of reading, the Dex 3 is probably the better one rather than the Dex 6. But look, you know, transmission oil fluid is a controversial topic. I just went with what was recommended by the part supplier who sells BMW. They're the BMW experts, so I went with them. In terms of other tools, what I have here is obviously a rag, the ratchet set to undo the pan bolts, obviously to clean the pan gasket area if I need to. I've got a 500ml suction cup here to transfer the fluid. I've got the Torx 40 and 45. Little things like obviously the magnetic pan to hold the bolts and the transmission drain pan there. So look, there might be some other things that I'm missing out. I mean, I've got obviously the safety gear. The other thing that's not shown here is I actually have a laptop with IMPA installed, and I've got the relevant cable, and I'll show that later on whilst we're measuring the transmission temperature, because that's part of the go when setting the fuel level, making sure that the transmission is between 30 and 50 degrees C. Anyway, we'll cover that. So that's for the tools, and I'll now show you the jack and stands and so on. 2 ramps, the jacks and car stands. Now I'm going to be driving the front of the car on here. I'm going to be jacking or holding the rear of the car with these jack stands using the rear pads, and then I'm going to also be using these on the front and rear stands as well, or the jack points of the car. So super safe. But I'll have a video on that, a separate video on that, on how I put the car up on the stands. So anyway, that's the gear, and next thing to do is to get the car on the stands and start working on it. Well, here's the transmission, green label. There's obviously the drain plug, and obviously these are all the bolts that I've got to remove all along around the pan. And before I do that, I need to go to the other side. Looks like that's where the fuel plug is. So I'll do that now, because we want to make sure that we can undo the fuel plug before we even think about draining. Right, so on this side, there's the fill, and we want to undo that one. So that is, it's a bit of a tight squeeze. I wonder if I can just get that in there. Here we go. That's a Torx 45. So I'll just position the camera the best I can so that way you guys can see. Now of course when undoing this, there we go, it shouldn't be too much more difficult than that. So now I know that I've got it loose, I can now focus on the drain. Let's get to that. And that one is I believe a 40, Torx 40. Looks like it is. I just want to make sure that I've got proper support. Oh, here we go. Great. Okay. Whoa, now it's starting to come out. And the oil actually looks not too bad. Hopefully that's a good sign. Now it's a bit of wind now, so I might have to see whether or not I can find a bucket that's actually a little bit closer to the plug. Okay, so I'm going to move this one out of the way and put this bucket. Actually, that's the oil catch can that I use when changing the oil of the Discovery. Let's get closer to the action. Okay. I'm going to try to take this out like I do when I'm changing the oil, the engine oil. Okay, without trying to make too much of a mess. Okay, it's almost up. I'm putting a bit of pressure upwards, obviously, and it's now done. Okay, so there's still a little bit of that olivey colour that you can see there. So for 150,000 kilometres, the oil is either really nicely maintained, as in it hasn't deteriorated much, or someone's done an oil change already in the past. Either way, I'm glad that there isn't you know, this black crap coming out of it. So I'm trying to see whether you can get a nice shot of the oil colour. So it's still brown, but certainly not, in my opinion, which is questionable, I suppose, but just judging here, looks pretty good. Okay, and we'll let that continue draining. Now I'll also take that off, because that'll allow air to go through and assist with the draining process. And there we are there. Back here again. And we'll just let that that drain. What I'm going to start doing now is undoing the bolts, each one of them, all around the perimeter. What I'll do is I'll leave one or two in the back so that the pan can drop forward and hopefully get rid of some more oil that's stuck in the pan there. I'm also going to exchange that for that, so I've got more room. Here we go, 10 mil. They should not be hard at all, and they're not. I can basically with one hand turn and crack. So I'm not undoing them at first. All I'm doing is just loosening them like that. And I'll just go around all of them and just do that. Okay, so before I kind of continue taking those off, all the bolts off, you can see now that they're effectively just hand tight. Now I'm just going to put this back in. That'll kind of avoid a big mess in case the pan does drop. So I'll just do that. That's now in place, and I can now continue removing the rest of the pan bolts. So these will all be replaced anyway. That comes with the kit. So I'm not too particularly worried about their condition. Okay, so I'll just do that all around now. Alright, so the bolts are all out. I've left that one a bit in there, and that one over there. And the idea now is to undo this, make sure the pan's nicely in position. I'll undo that again, and starting to see if we can make this budge. Probably need a flathead screwdriver actually. I'll let that continue draining. Okay, I'll see if I can position the screwdriver somehow that I could get it in between there and there, if you know what I mean. So try to break the seal. Shouldn't be much of a seal, but you just never know. And of course I can't get the leverage while I was holding the camera much, but anyway, see how we go. Here we go. Oh! Okay, so that was a, you can see all the oil that's coming down from the inside. So that's why I kept those two bolts at the back, so the whole pan wouldn't just drop and then create a super mess. It's created a bit of a mess, but it's not too bad considering. I'm just going to hold the pan up, and with my fingers I'm just undoing the last two. Okay. Drop that, and more oil will come down, as you can see. There's a filter. You can see how much oil there is still there left. Okay, here we go. Let's take that out. Condition. Right. Well, that's quite pleasing. You can see the oil has still got that olivey colour to it, and the magnets do have a bit of crud, unfortunately. You can see there. Now I don't know if this is how normal it is for these gearboxes, but I know that when I did my E39 540i a number of years ago, that has, I think it had 4 magnets. So I can't kind of see whether or not this is actually more or less than what it was. However, having said that, I am still pleased with the colour of the oil. So now what I'm going to do is wash this up. I'll wash that, clean the magnet, make sure it's all good. We'll peel off this gasket. I'm probably going to have to use a knife for that. So basically get in here, get a bit of a perch and see whether or not I can gently, without trying to break it, just run it around. I mean, even the gasket looks in fairly good nick. Like, you know, the rubber around it. Now I don't know whether or not this is normal for this vehicle of this age, but it just strikes me that this component, that component is actually still quite fresh, so to speak. It's not kind of breaking apart. There's a filter there. And that's where it goes up to the top there.